Hello and welcome to the Confidence Academy podcast. My name is Lily Badcock and I am a transformational confidence coach and founder of the Confidence Academy Members Club, helping men and women just like you to build unshakable confidence and self-belief. Each week, I will be bringing you new episodes with advice and guidance to help you rebuild lost confidence, manage anxiety, and finally start living the life you were born to live. It is my aim to reach as many people as possible with the message that no matter what you're going through, no matter what your struggle may be, there is hope. And there is a way to create an amazing life for yourself. The incredible people I have been blessed to interview on the show are walking, talking examples of how this is possible. And I truly hope you will find their stories uplifting, inspiring, and motivational. The conversations are very open and candid and occasionally may include some adult language, so please take care when listening around little ones or grab some headphones. This podcast series is brought to you in association with Lily Badcock Confidence Coaching and the Confidence Academy Members Club. If you are ready to make the shift from anxious and frustrated to calm and confident, then visit www.lilybadcock.com today and get started with the free resources that are waiting there for you. I need you to know that you're not alone, that it can and will get easier, and that the transformation you seek is possible. You are more powerful than you know, and I'm here to teach you everything I know about harnessing that power and creating an amazing life on your terms. Before we dive in, don't forget to leave a review for us on iTunes and to check out the links in the podcast notes to the free resources we have available for you. But for now, let's get you on your way to living your epic life, free of anxiety and full of confidence. After all, confidence is yours as soon as you choose it. Hello, welcome to the Confidence Academy podcast. It's Lily Badcock here, and today I am joined by the wonderful Elena Sonnino, who is a motivational speaker and a life coach. So Elena, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Lily. I'm so excited and honored to be here with your community. I'm just, hooray!
I'm really excited to have you here as well. So tell us where you are in the world, first and foremost.
I am in Virginia, in the United States, so just outside of Washington, D.C.
Awesome. This is what I love about this podcast is that, you know, I can speak to people all over the world at just the touch of a button on my computer. It just blows my mind. I don't think I will ever not be amazed by the fact that we can do this.
It's amazing, right? And that we feel so close when we're chatting.
I know, it's so nice. And a lot of the times it's people that I've met online via messaging and then I get to see their face and it's just phenomenal. So thank you for giving up your time and thank you for being here. So today, I just wanted to basically share a little bit about your story and a little bit about the work that you do as a motivational speaker and as a life coach, because I imagine that you see a lot of issues with anxiety and, you know, kind of similar issues around that. So we would really love to learn from you, from your perspective as to how best to deal with these things that arise, and in your experience, you know, the techniques that you find have worked best for you and for your clients. So let's get going with just a bit of background into your story, first of all. So let us know who you are and how you came to do the wonderful work that you're doing.
Yes, well, it's funny. There are the easy things in the story, right? Like the physical hats I wear, and then there are the other pieces. So the easy hats that I wear are that, yes, I'm a life coach, I'm a motivational speaker, I'm a mom to a 13-year-old. So that brings up teen anxiety and confidence and all of these things in a 13-year-old is a fascinating kind of exploration. So there's that. And I am also a cancer survivor. I had Hodgkin's disease 21 years ago. I was first diagnosed. And I think that process in my life has informed a lot of the work that I do. It really shaped the direction kind of my life. At the time, you know, I was 20, doing the math, whatever it was, 21 years ago, 21. And I, thought I was going to go into international public relations and all of these things, and ended up after that teaching in the public school system here for 12 years. I did that and I really loved it. I loved what I enjoyed most about that time in my life was helping students really think independently. And I think that really speaks to the work that I continue to do, is helping people kind of allow themselves to explore with curiosity and thoughtfulness rather than getting stuck, right? Yeah. And I remember working with third graders in particular, the boys, they would come to me and they would loathe writing, and writing was my favorite thing to teach. And I remember they were stuck there because they had, frankly, so much anxiety, so many stories that they had wrapped in their mind about punctuation and capitalization and spelling from first and second grade, because that's what's, so focused on. So I had that moment in my life, and then I was a writer for several years. And in that time, I was realizing that the parts of my writing that really resonated were these aspirational stories, and that I had always been a coach, right? In one way or another, I was trained by my school system as a coach for other faculty members, and that I was a guide. I'd always been a guide. I asked great questions, and I kind of create and hold space for people to open up to themselves in new ways. And as I realized that, that's where I embarked on the life coach journey, and then also ended up in yoga teacher training, because the two were so symbiotic. And I think through all of that, I had several realizations. One, that I'd always been a silver lining type of girl, right? I would come up against something, and it was never a question of how I would get through it, or if I would get through it rather, but it was how I was going to get through it. And the way to me was to just forge ahead, right? Everything's okay. And while that can be a positive coping mechanism, there's a lot that then you deny, right? And I realized that, especially in that time where I was sick, I had 18 months where I never allowed myself to feel. I wrote in my journal twice. And it was because I really was afraid to feel. And so that's what I think I bring both in my story, and a lot of the clients that I work with are very high achieving women, successful, they have families, they have careers, but they've gotten through life just doing, and never slowing down, because if they feel, that's intense and that's scary.
Yeah.
Right. And there's this stigma around letting yourself feel the wholeness of that experience. And there's, the idea of like going into the quicksand, right? If you allow yourself to feel sad or feel intense or feel anxious, then you're going to get absorbed by the quicksand and never come out. And what I realized is, okay, but there has to be a happy place in between, or perhaps happy isn't the right word, but there has to be a place in between where you can allow yourself to experience the breadth and depth of both the highs and the lows, without letting those define you.
Yes, and that's so important, I think.
Yeah, right. And that idea that there's acceptance that comes into noticing those sensations. It doesn't mean giving in to them. It doesn't mean like waving a white flag and saying, all right, the whole idea of surrender to me is easing into the moment, but not just saying, all right, I give up, whatever.
Yeah, it's allowing it to come through, but standing in your power, knowing that you can survive it.
Yes.
That it doesn't have to. Yeah, I think that's such an important thing, because I was definitely one of those people, and I probably still am to a degree, where you're kind of afraid to let those emotions come through, because you feel like you're going to then get dragged down this rabbit hole and not come back out. So I know in my experience, and I know in the experience of a lot of people that listen to this podcast, that they will choose to, I think people that suffer with anxiety tend to be the ones who are really good at helping everybody around them, because one, they're really empathic and it's in their nature to do that. And I actually feel like the two go hand in hand. But also, and I will speak for myself here, I can't speak for anybody else, but if I'm being really brutally honest, all the time I'm helping everybody around me, I don't have to deal with my own crap.
Absolutely.
And it's, and it does, it is healing. And to be fair to myself and to anyone else who finds they do that, there is healing in that. And I've definitely been able to heal some of my anxiety because I help other people.
Right.
But I do think as well, you owe it to yourself to allow your own emotions to flow. And it's exactly what you said. It's kind of empowered allowing, isn't it? It's saying,
Yes.
let's let these emotions come through, and I know I'm going to be okay, and I know I can go to this place, and hopefully that's what the guests on this podcast offer people. It's that support network that when they feel like maybe they don't have it, there's a whole network of people here who have your back that can help you out.
Absolutely. And it's so important. I think that asking for help and realizing that you can receive, right, that help and that support from others and even from yourself. And that's another way that I look at this, kind of allowing yourself to feel that wholeness of that experience. Is it's both self-acceptance, but it's also self-compassion. It's a gift to yourself to say, okay, this is part of the experience too. Right.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people, a lot of different teachers say things like this too, or this belongs, or Kristen Neff, who's done a lot of work in self-compassion, when you're feeling those things that are really intense, she invites you to put, both hands over your heart and close your eyes and just understand that, like, of course you feel that way. It's okay.
Yeah.
And to give yourself that moment. And then what I find really powerful is it becomes like an internal pause button, like an opportunity for discernment, which is something that I really value, to say, okay, so what am I going to feed, right? Which of those energies am I going to choose? And sometimes, let's be honest, we want to feel sad. We want to feel the intensity and let ourselves have the good cry, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay. But that becomes, as you said, an empowered decision.
Yeah.
Rather than just having it thrown onto you.
Yeah, it comes back to perception, which I rattle on about all the time, but this was one of my biggest realizations on so many levels. First of all, that I used to think that I had to get rid of my anxiety, and the reason I felt that way was because I perceived it to be a terrible thing, whereas actually, okay, it might not feel fun, but it isn't this terrible monstrous thing that you think it is. It comes for a purpose, it comes for a reason. And when you shift your perception, you don't even have to have the answers, but if you just think, oh, why is this showing up then, or what could this possibly mean, and from a place of, like you say, self-compassion, self-love, and not beating yourself over the head, not telling yourself constantly that you're in the wrong for feeling that way, and that and that it means you're broken, or that it means that that somehow you're not deserving. And I believed all of those things at one time, and then I just kind of, it was like a little light bulb that slowly went on over time, where I was like, oh, like this situation is going to be what it is, regardless of how I feel about it. So I can choose to see it as a terrible thing, which will bring with it all of the stress and sadness and heaviness that comes with that. Or I could choose to believe that it's here for a purpose, for a reason, that I get to be okay anyway. And this is one of the biggest things. That was how the whole topic of perception came up, really, was that realization that even if the worst thing happens, I'm still okay. As on the bigger scheme of things, and in the grand picture, I'm going to be all right. And I think that's what anxiety is to me. It's the belief that you're not going to be okay, whatever happens. And when you realize that you are, it's like, a great example of this is, I just had Sophia 8 weeks ago, and I was having my contractions, and they'd got to a point where they were getting uncomfortable. And so I kind of said, what's my options for pain relief? And they said, oh, epidural. And I was like, yeah, I think I will, because you don't get a certificate for pushing through, and I know I've done it with no pain relief, and I know it sucks. So I was like, let's have the pain relief. And within the 10 minutes it took the guy to come to me, she was then coming. And it was that realization in that moment that, oh crap, I'm not getting this pain relief. And for a split second I panicked, and I literally was like, are you actually kidding me? Do I have to do this again? Like, I didn't even have paracetamol this time. At least I got a paracetamol with Fred, It was like, seriously? And then I kind of caught myself, and I was like, look, this is happening. This baby is coming and it's going to be intense. You can choose to believe that you can't do this, or you can choose to believe that you can. And I had Jennifer Hudson's song, I've Got This, going round and round in my head. And I think I was even humming it between contractions. I got this. I was like, yes, I can do it. And, you know, that doesn't mean it didn't hurt. It doesn't mean it wasn't hard. It doesn't mean it didn't get really frustrating. But I can absolutely guarantee for a fact, at no point during this time did I utter the words, I can't do this. And I know I said that with the other two. I did get to that point where I was just panicked and everything was hard. And I was like, I can't do it. And I remember the midwife saying, you have to do it. You know, like slapping me round the head, like, you're going to have to do it. You don't, this is not a negotiation. Whereas with Sophia, I made that choice for myself. It was like, oh, all right. And I just remember going, almost like I was a bit peed off, but it was like, oh, all right, if we're doing it, let's do it. Let's get it done. You know, bring it. I can do this. I know I'm going to get through. I know it's going to be wonderful. I've got a baby coming at the end of it. So come on, let's batten down the hatches and just push through. And it was that power of perception. And
the mindset piece is just so important, right? That idea of, and I've heard Lynn Twist says, what you appreciate appreciates, right? It's that whole idea, like what you feed grows, whatever it is. But it's that idea of what are you going to choose to, what will you choose? The other thing that came to mind as you were saying that is, it's also not about fixing, right? It's believing that it's not something that has to be fixed.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting mindset too, or perception, is that, so this is part of the whole. It doesn't have to define the entirety, but when you find ease, when you just say, again, it's not like a white flag surrender rabbit hole, but when you let yourself feel the intensity of what you're feeling, it's almost like a magic, it's like pixie dust is sprinkled and you suddenly, it doesn't have to be as hard.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. And I think, you can, and I know it sounds like I'm being really blasé. And I know if you're listening to this and you are currently in that place where it feels so dark and so hard, I know some of this won't hit home straight away. I'm just saying, sit with this idea just for a minute and maybe listen back to this episode in a day or two when it's maybe lifted, because I know, even if you suffer the worst chronic anxiety, it still comes in waves. You still have days where it feels completely all consuming. And there are other days where you feel a little bit like maybe you can function. So
that's a great point. Yeah. And it's that reminder that these are tools that we don't start to implement in the worst of days, right? We use them when things are okay to start practicing, so that they're in the toolkit, that maybe they offer some relief. And as a reminder, the other thing that I often encourage my clients to do is to use like visual reminders, right? So different places. So I've got people that have Post-its, in the car, on the mirror in the bathroom, near the computer, whatever, with the question like, what will you feed today, right? What energy am I going to grow? And it's just kind of that reminder to check in with the mindset. And also that reminder that even in, the deepest darkness, right? We're still human. We still deserve to feel and to give ourselves some love and to receive that from others. So it's a fine line, I think, for people, right? To allow themselves to feel, because it can be super intense and also really scary.
Yeah. I think, I don't know what you think about this, but for me, certainly, I find that the way the world is now, with all the social media that we're surrounded by, there's two sides to that. I think, first of all, you can scroll through your social media and everybody else's life looks better than yours.
Of course.
And that can feed the belief that you're not enough and that you're not whole and you didn't win, you didn't succeed, and maybe you failed and all of that. And then on the other side, and I think this is also true, there seems to be this idea that, again, I'm going to speak for myself, this was a belief of mine, or even is a belief of mine on a subconscious level, perhaps, only because it comes out in my journaling, that in order to win, you first have to struggle. It's like this, isn't struggle like, Yeah, isn't struggle like really fashionable at the moment? And that's going to piss some people off because they're going to hear that and go, oh, I don't have anxiety to be fashionable. And that isn't what I mean. I'm just saying that I uncovered a belief in myself that I almost felt guilty about all the times my life had been easy. You know, I've had an amazing childhood. I've got an amazing husband. I have amazing children. I get to do the work that I love. So much about my life is awesome. And yet anxiety still comes up. And then I had guilt about that because it was like, why are you anxious? Because you've been given a good life. Like, you can easily look around and see people that have terrible struggles. And then again, you start to beat yourself up because then you're like, oh, you don't. And again, it's that deserving, isn't it? It's like, I don't deserve to feel this bad. And then you're not allowing it.
Absolutely. Well, so it's really interesting, right? Because I've realized this. Now, so I've never, there's all sorts of different types of anxiety, right? There's the really, the huge spectrum. So I don't want to, take away from the depth of that. But there's this idea, I'm looking at my bookcase. There's a book by the author Gay Hendricks.
Yes.
It's called The Big Leap. Have you read it? Yeah. Right. So the whole idea of the upper limit problem, like, where are you not allowing yourself to feel all of that which you wish to feel? And I had this realization this morning. My, things have been fabulous. There's also been some really intense, sad moments in my life the last few weeks. And I was feeling out of sorts. And I was describing it to someone as, when you like the old style radios that you had to manually tune and there would be static and then you would find the channel and you didn't get it just right. It felt like all that static. And I realized that I was upper limiting myself by basically believing that it had to be crystal clear. Things had to be just right for me to feel okay and to feel like I had made the progress that I think I made, or felt the success, or whatever it was, or the joy. When in the reality is that I was adding on moments to myself because I was reaching that upper limit, right? I was allowing myself to feel all the pleasure, to feel all the joy, to feel the clarity. And when those little moments of static came in, I'd be like, oh yeah, see, there we are again.
Yes.
And so it's also that belief of this isn't going to last is one of the limiting beliefs that I hear people talk about a lot of, they'll feel really good. And then, but there's always this belief in the back of their mind of, but this isn't going to last.
Yeah. Right? Oh, that's a huge one. That comes up for me a lot in journaling. Almost fear of even achieving things in the first place, because I'm already worried that I'm going to lose them. And do you know where that first showed up? I've just realized this, but I know it's come up before. I remember when I was younger, before I had kids and when I actually had money to spare, I used to book to go on holidays with my friends. And I would get really excited about going on the holiday. And then I would get really genuinely sad about the fact that I would have to come home before I've even left to go on the holiday.
Yes.
So I'm going through the entire range of emotions, from all the excitement and feeling awesome to then being gutted that I have to come back. And I know now that maybe that was a sign that I needed to look at what I was doing with my life, because now I actually look forward to coming home because I love my life anyway. I actually don't believe in holidays as such. It's just a change of scenery, because the work I do now is my life. I don't see it as work. It's, but back then I was working in an office for somebody else, and I think I was just filing stuff, and it wasn't fulfilling to me. And, so I went through this whole range of emotions that I was already getting. It was like drinking alcohol and going straight to the hangover. Like, I wasn't allowing myself to have any of the enjoyment of feeling tipsy,
Well, it's that reminder too of where are you in your mind and in your body and in your heart? Are you in the past thinking about all the things that have happened in the past? Are you planning or whatever for the future, right? And pre-planning and catastrophizing. That's one of my favorites, is, thinking of all the things that are going to go wrong. Or could you just allow yourself to be in the moment? It's such a good reminder, because I think so many of us do it. But that's the whole, it's never going to last, because they thought of, 6 different reasons that of the past evidence, really, like it's like everybody's a detective, like, and they've got that file, that dossier saying, see, it didn't work here, it didn't work here. So it's almost like a rewiring of the brain to say, hey, all right, well, but right now,
Yeah.
right now, you know, what could I not try to fix, right? What could I just let be? Where could I find some ease? And ease isn't easy.
No, it really isn't. It's really
Right?
not. Because
It's
again,
not.
you feel bad that it was so easy. You just think, well, it can't be that easy. Like, surely I have to work for this. Surely, again, it's that. I do think Joe Vitale talks about this. He calls it the level of deservingness,
Yeah.
where he's like, what do you feel deserving of? And you know, that's really that's what that book is about. So for anyone who hasn't read that book, I think I've mentioned it on the podcast before, actually. It's called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, and the concept is that we all have this unseen upper limit, and it's this idea of what we're worthy of. And he's not saying that you can't bust through that limit. He's saying that when you do, that's when sabotage tends to show up. So you may well get to your goal weight or close to it, but then you're going to go and eat the chocolate bar because on some level you don't feel deserving of being that dream weight that you've written down. It's an amazing book. Interestingly, my hypnotherapist told me to read it when I first went to see her with my anxiety, and I didn't read it for, oh my God, I'm going to say like 2 years. It was awful. Like, the ironic thing was that in itself was self-sabotage, because if I'd read the book, I'd have understood what was going on a lot sooner, and I probably could have fixed it. So I was as I listened, I got it on Audible, so it's like an audio version.
Yeah.
And because I find if I try and sit and read a book, it just doesn't happen. But I can put that on in my car, or if I'm in the shower, or like, you know, doing other things. The other thing I want to touch on, which is kind of similar to that, is something that I learned from a lady called Anne Wilson, who's actually, she calls herself the wealth chef, and she deals a lot with finance and, you know, money and things, but she's also super spiritual. And this concept was what I learned from her. And it was the idea that, you know, similar to the Gay Hendricks book, that we have these unwritten rules. So, you know, she used dieting as an example. So she said, you know, you will take action on your weight when you notice that your jeans don't do up, for example. So that's when you've hit that limit of what you will put up with. You know, so my jeans don't do up. This is unacceptable. I'm going to lose weight. And so you start to eat good and you start to work out, and then your jeans start to fit. And so your weight comes down and you start to feel happier. But then at some point you get to this point where you're like, oh, my jeans do up now. Maybe I'll just have like one little biscuit. That'll be okay. And then you start to springboard back the other way, and you don't do anything about it till you're back in the situation where your jeans don't fit, and then you do it all over again. So she encouraged us. She was talking about finance and kind of money blocks and things at the time, but she encouraged us to say, you know, really, whatever you're struggling with, look at what you're willing to put up with, and then raise that. You almost want like no limit. You want that to be like an open-ended thing, like there's always more, and you can just keep going and going and going. That's not to say that if you're losing weight you should just keep losing weight until you've lost, you know, till you're a skeleton, but it's basically, you know, smashing through that upper limit, isn't it? It's identifying what that is, and then realizing that actually it doesn't exist. It's in your mind. It's this mindset.
And to me, the way to really tap into that and to embody that, to find that commitment, is to even think beyond the goal, whether it's money or eating or, you know, weight, whatever it is, and to tune into like, how would it feel?
Yeah.
Right. So to really get into the physical sensations, even the energetic sensations, the emotions, to say, all right, this is, and almost come up with like an avatar, like an image of how it's going to feel. Right. So that way you can tap in. So it's not just about the outcome, the destination. Mm-hmm. It's really, how can you embody that regardless of what the scale says, the number in the bank account says, whatever it is.
Yes.
So you can keep cultivating that energy.
Yes.
And know that that's what you're working towards, right? It's an inside kind of dependency rather than it's an inner strength rather than an outer dependency.
Yeah.
And actually, I think I heard that. I think Danielle Laporte said that a few years ago. I remember hearing that, but it really stuck with me, that inner strength.
Yeah, it is. And I just want to say, because I've come across that a lot in, you know, in my own sort of self-development and in my own work on myself, I've heard that a lot, that it's the vision beyond the vision. It's thinking, you know, what's my goal? And then if I'd achieved that goal, then what would my goal be? And who would I be in order to achieve that? And I think you can get really stuck there, because when you're really struggling with whatever you're struggling with, you know, saying, oh, how would it feel to have it? It can be really, really difficult to do that. Yeah. What would your advice be to somebody then, if that was their response to you, if they were like, well, that all sounds well and good, but the fact is I am struggling to lose weight, or I am struggling to make money, or whatever it may be. How do I get into a true sense of feeling those emotions? Because if you know anything about law of attraction, you know that it's it's the frequency you're vibrating at that will call in what you want. So you can say affirmations till you're blue in the face, but if your underlying vibration is, I can't do this, you'll get more of I can't do this, which is such a bummer, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's so funny. I now check my language. You know, whenever I say something, wait, what did I just say? Did I really want to put that out? Do I need to?
I know. Yeah. So what would your advice be? Like somebody maybe who's hearing this for the first time, or maybe someone who's hearing this and hasn't mastered the art yet. How can we raise our vibration when we're so stressed and anxious?
Yeah, I think really there's a few things. And to me, it all begins with starting really small, right? With acknowledging that, first of all, even the awareness of there's a way you want to feel, I think is the first step. And that perhaps the story that you're telling yourself and that the way that is happening each day isn't how you want to feel. So that to me is a step in itself, even just that awareness of catching those thoughts, catching those stories, and realizing, hey, you're in this loop of, I don't believe this, right? This can't happen. The thing that there's two pieces I think that are really powerful as strategies and tools for people who are just beginning to play, and even for people that have played with this for a long time. The first is to simply, when you wake up in the morning, to ask yourself, and it can be looking in the mirror, it cannot be looking in the mirror. Looking in the mirror has a lot of power, I think, but that can be too intense for some people. But simply ask yourself, how do I want to feel when I go to sleep tonight?
Yeah.
And it can be something like, hey, I want to feel proud. I want to feel strong. You know, but just giving yourself some type of non-outcome based thing that you're working toward, right? Yeah. That's internal. And then in that moment, make a commitment. Think of one thing that you could do. It could be a small thing. You know, it could be going outside and looking at flowers in your garden, right? Yeah. Or making a meal, you know, feeling like you have a choice in making a meal rather than making a meal for the family because you feel like you have to, yes. Right? So committing to one small step that you will do in that day that you think will help you feel that way, yeah. Right? And then almost letting go of what that has to look like,
yeah,
so that it could end up looking anyway, right? But at least you've started to like pre-plant the idea of this is one thing I could do. And then when you go to sleep that night, you know, loop that circle or close that circle by saying, okay, what did I do today to feel that way?
Yeah.
And this is the really important part. If you didn't feel that way, of saying, okay, this is what happened. What could I maybe do differently tomorrow?
Yeah.
Right. So again, it's that self-compassion piece.
Yeah.
So that if things didn't go that way, you can say, all right, but it's again, planting that vibrational kind of energy seed of saying, this is my intention. This is how I want to feel. The other super powerful tool, and you know, you've probably heard a lot of people talk about this, but the idea of visualization. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a reason that, you know, athletes, CEOs, musicians, you know, all sorts of people spend time visualizing. It's your, again, pre-wiring your brain to see something as possible. So it could be a really short, like sometimes, so one of the practices that I tried to build and struggled with for a long time was getting up early in the morning to do my meditation, my yoga, all the different things, right? Mm-hmm. And then I would beat myself up. See, you didn't choose you again. And it became like a weapon of mass self-destruction. Yeah. I had these really good intentions that then weren't playing out. So I started at night to visualize, all right, what's it going to look like to get up in the morning, to see my alarm go off, to get up, And I saw myself go through all of the steps, right?
Yeah.
The getting up, pressing the alarm, walking into the bathroom, brushing my teeth, the whole thing. And then I allowed myself in that visualization to feel what it was going to feel like, right?
Yeah.
There was this sense of grounding. There was this sense of just kind of relief in the morning, watching sunrise, that type of thing. And that way, it's a way to, it's like you're building that neural pathway, that takeoff point for your mind to say,
Yeah.
hey, this could be possible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those
So
are the
powerful.
two practices, I think, of asking yourself, hey, how do I want to feel? And then checking in at night.
Yeah.
And the visualization piece. And frankly, you can visualize, I like to visualize at night, but visualizing can be powerful at any time of the day.
Yeah, I find I tend to do it in my mind at night as I'm going to sleep. If there's anything that's on my mind in terms of stress or worry, then I will recognize that as being a worry, and then I will physically choose, well, what do I want instead? That's what you don't want, so what do you want?
Right.
And then I physically write intentions in the morning. And intentions as in, it's not me saying, oh, I want to have, because that comes from the energy of not having it. And guess what you get more of? More of not having it. So I will write statements as if they are true. And I will blend those with statements that are already true. So I will say, I'm a loving and present mum, which I am. I will also say I am, I actually, in quite a lot of my visualizations at the end of last year, I was writing, I have an award-winning podcast. And really soon after I started doing that, I hit new and noteworthy in iTunes, which I didn't even know that was a thing, but somebody tagged me and was like, oh my God, you're new and noteworthy. I was like, wow. And I didn't get a physical award. So, that's like just a lesson in being more specific with what you want. But to be honest, I didn't need an award in my hand. My point of writing that was, in my mind, I thought if it's an award-winning podcast, it means it's touched a lot of people's lives. It means it's made a difference. And so to be new and noteworthy was huge. And, we've tipped 50,000 listeners now. And somebody stopped me in a shop yesterday. This is bizarre. Somebody stopped me in my local shop as I was going out. And they went, oh my God, are you the girl that does the Confidence Academy podcast? And I went, yeah. She went, oh, I listen all the time and I'm so excited. In fact, she'll be listening now. So, oh my God, you made my day, whoever you are. I think her name was Penny. But she said, oh, I listen all the time and it's really helped me. And I was like, do you know what? That's why I do this. And that's why the guests come on. That's why we do what we do. It's for that, and that was written in my visualization first. That was the point of that story.
It's funny. Yeah, because I did some visualizing, for some of the motivational speaking, right, and some of the events and thinking, and I visualized getting emails or letters afterwards thanking me for having shared a story and how something resonated. Several weeks later, 3 emails that week, right? Yeah. And it took me a minute. I was like, oh wait, I kind of, and it's that whole, whether you're into law of attraction or not, it's that idea of acting as if. Like, how would it feel to act as if that's the life you led?
Yeah.
And so whether it's anxiety or struggling with any other thing, one of the things I like to say to my clients is, I'm not going to ask you to disbelieve the story that you've been telling yourself for a long time. But let's just imagine for a moment that you had a shelf and you could put that story on the shelf for a moment. It will be there for you if you need it again.
Yeah.
Right. And that helps them disconnect that idea of physically putting it into on something.
Yeah.
Because it can be really hard, because that's, for a lot of people, there's an identity, that's wrapped up there. And so it also becomes this question of, well, if I let that story go, then who am I? Right. It brings on this whole existential, is my whole life going to change? Because that can be scary for people.
Yes.
So that idea of just on the shelf, who would you be without that, right? What would happen? What could you do? How would you treat yourself? How would you treat others? So playing with some of those questions and just kind of inquiry. And so it's like the whole, pretend, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's, and again, it's, tuning into that energy, that vibration, right?
Yeah.
Allowing it to be possible. One of my favorite intentions this year that I've set is, I allow what I want to be possible.
Yes. Yeah.
you know?
And I want to say, like, when it comes to law of attraction, so many people kind of shun it
Yeah.
as woo woo or not tangible. And I think when you're in blind panic and you want something to change instantly, like that kind of thing can feel not helpful.
Yeah.
I want to say, first of all, it's a universal law. It's happening whether you like it or not. It happens whether you believe in it or not. And I love that you brought up the fact of anxiety being an identity, because it can be scary to think about changing that, because then it's like you said, it's like who am I without this? And one of my fears was, well, it's bad enough that this is my struggle, but what if my struggle gets worse? Like, what if I give up this struggle and then get something even worse?
Yeah.
So the idea of just popping it on the shelf, so you're not letting go of it, you're just going to put it up on the shelf. You can get it back at any time you like, but just for fun, try on this new identity for size, and how would that feel?
Yeah.
I think that's so powerful. And I just want to say as well, we've both said that we wrote things in our journal, or we visualized things and then they came true. And it's not that you visualize it and then it comes true. That's not the whole story. But when you're physically visualizing it, when you're writing it down in a journal every day, or when you're spending even a moment going, this is my life, this is what I'm working for, whether you notice it or not, you start to make choices which then take you in that direction. You start to do things you might not even realize you're doing it. That's law of attraction. It's not this woo-woo magic. It's just the way it is.
Absolutely. And frankly, you could take out the words law of attraction and it would all still be true, right? It's that idea of clarity and awareness, right? Being the whole, like, allowing yourself to be whole, allowing these circumstances to come up, challenges, right? Allowing that to happen, and then say, okay, but again, discernment, like, what am I going to choose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to go down that path? Do I want to go, A or B? And some days it'll be A and some days it'll be B, but then deciding and acting, putting your whole heart in, rather than, so Brene Brown, talks a lot about, in her writings about vulnerability and daring greatly and rising, all the different books. But the idea is that, which story am I going to write?
Mm-hmm.
What do I want to create today?
Yeah.
And so that's another, kind of, when I think about, one of my daily practices is to think about, what do I need to let go of? What do I need to release?
Yeah.
And when things are really a struggle, maybe the release is, I need to release judgment.
Yeah.
Right? Like, maybe that's the only thing I can do. And that idea of, okay, so what then story will I write? If I'm not judging, what am I doing? I'm giving myself kindness. Maybe I'm letting myself have a day of self-care.
Yeah.
Right. So it becomes that kind of reminder that we get the choice.
Yes. And it's that, hard to do both, isn't it? You can't,
absolutely,
you can't laugh and cry at the same time. It's one or the other. And I think, when it comes to your anxiety, that's purely just, it comes with its lessons. It comes for a purpose. But when you're feeling down about it, then, and when you're beating yourself up about all the things you don't have yet and all the ways you haven't succeeded yet, then just stop. And if you're going to play that game, then go, well, okay, but what have I achieved? What do I have already? Because, I realized even recently that my anxiety had risen up again, because I was starting to get really hung up on all the things I wasn't good at. And then what that meant was, I stopped doing all the things I'm really good at, one of which is helping people who are anxious. And, I thought, well, for a start, that sucks for me, but my God, doesn't it suck for the world? Because that's why I'm here. And, you literally, everyone has a purpose. I say it every time. You have a purpose for being here. You have a divine gift. And, you can spend your whole life looking at all the ways you didn't succeed, or you can start looking at all the ways you did, because actually there is no one human being that succeeds in every area. We are all beautifully put together in these different ways. We all have strengths, we all have weaknesses. And I think the whole point is we bond together as a network to lift each other up. That's the whole point. Absolutely. So, start looking at what you're good at, start looking at where you could help others, and allow others to help you. I think that's one of the biggest lessons I learned, that not only is it okay, it's absolutely vital. And it's a gift for that person as well. You give that person the gift of helping you.
Absolutely. Well, there's this whole idea of needing help seen as is a weakness,
Mm,
right? That receiving help, needing help means that we're weak, we're not strong, we're
mm.
whatever you want to label it. But in actuality, it takes vulnerability and it takes strength to be able to receive from somebody else.
Yes.
So seeing that, right, again, the perspective, the mindset shift, right, just that
Mm,
really subtle opportunity to say, okay, but actually, me asking for help means that I'm standing up for what I need, that I'm well, and that I'm recognizing what I need.
yeah. And there isn't
And
one person on this planet that doesn't need help with something.
oh my goodness, yes.
Not one person, not one, not even
Yeah.
Oprah.
And she would be the
Everyone.
first to say it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we're going to wrap up because I know we've come to the end of our time. It's been absolutely amazing to have you on here. I
Oh,
feel like
it's been
this
such
could have
a
gone
joy.
for hours.
We could have. I thank you so much for just the conversation and such great questions and so many good shares and perspectives. So I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for giving us your
Yeah.
time.
Oh
As
my
with
goodness.
all the guests, I always ask at the end, if you had the ability to reach every anxiety sufferer in the world, what would your message to them be? What would you want them to know?
I'd want them to know that you are okay and enough exactly how you are, and that there isn't something that needs to be fixed. There's just a gift that you can give yourself in saying, okay, this is where I am right now, and that's okay. I love me anyway.
Yes.
And tomorrow or the next moment is an opportunity to write a different story. If that's what feels right.
Yeah.
That reminder that we're not stuck, that we can put that identity on the shelf for just a moment,
Yeah.
if that feels safe, and that you're okay exactly, that you are exactly where you need to be,
Yeah. And
even if
that's
that feels
so
so
much.
hard.
Yeah, so and it is hard. I understand that it is hard, but that is where the shift takes place from. It's
Yeah.
that energy. It's when it's that release you talked about. It's that releasing of the how and saying, yes, I would love to call these things in. These are my goals. These are my dreams. But do you know what? I'm already enough without them.
Yeah.
That's what brings them in, which
Yeah.
again is a massive bummer, isn't it? Because it's like the opposite to how you feel a lot of the
It
time.
is. Well, I did some writing recently. So there was this show when I was younger, MacGyver, right? Who is this?
Mm,
I don't know if you're familiar with it. He always was able to come up with like fixes and solutions for anything using tools and all sorts of things. And
yeah.
I've kind of decided like we need to stop MacGyvering our lives, right? And
Yeah.
even in those depths of darkness and difficulty, that sometimes allowing ourselves to just let that moment be okay. let
Mm,
it let yourself know that it's not forever, that it's
yeah.
just that moment, and give yourself literally like right hand on your heart, left hand on top, and say, I'm okay.
Hmm.
But that's a really powerful gift we can give ourselves.
And
That
that's an
reminder.
amazing piece of advice. That's something you can do actually if you're someone that suffers with panic attacks, because I know if you suffer with them ongoing as well, you can often tell when there's one coming on. And that's exactly what I did the last time I had a panic attack, which I'm going to say was now going on for, oh God, maybe 3 years ago. It was a long time ago now.
Yeah.
I was in a fitness class and I hadn't had a panic attack for ages before that, but I could feel it coming on and I started to think, oh my God, I can't breathe. And the music felt really loud and I started to panic. And I did exactly that. I sat myself down near the fan, I got some air and I put my hands on my heart and I shut my eyes and I was like, you're okay. You're all right. Like, chill the
Yeah.
hell out. Like, I don't
Right.
know what this is about. We can pull it apart. We can dig deep, whatever. But right now, you're okay. You don't need to be having a panic attack. And I did manage to swerve it. I didn't actually go into full blown attack,
Yeah.
but it was a struggle. I remember thinking on the one hand, it was like, I'm okay. And then the other part of me was going, oh, you're such an idiot. You're about to have a panic attack and all these people are going to see you. And, it was like this horrible voice was like saying to me, oh, this is going to happen. And then luckily the other part of me was like, I don't think so. Not today. No, I'm all right. I know I'm okay. So shush, but
Yeah.
I was very aware of it then.
Yeah. Well, and the last thing that I'll share is that 3 breaths, some just intentional inhales and exhales are
Mm.
like, they're liquid gold, right? And they just they may not change. They're not going to make the pain or the difficulty go away, but it's just allowing yourself to be in that moment and breathing, right? And sometimes we just have to get out of our own way. And that's really what it sounds like you did. You got out of, you saw it coming, you felt the sensations, and you took a moment just to honor where you are.
Yeah. I love that advice. That's amazing. So before I let you go, how can they reach you? If anybody listening to this episode would like to find out more about your work or to ask questions following this episode, where can they find you?
I would love to chat with anyone that has questions. They can find me at elenasonnino.com. It's ELENASONNINO.com. You can also find me on Instagram. I love to play on Instagram, so that's one of my favorite places. But the website has all sorts of information, and you can email me from there. And I would love to just help anyone and questions, stories, all the things.
Perfect. Thank you. And I've got all of those links, so I will put those in the show notes for anyone that wants to follow them. And there's an invitation as well for you to come and join me over in the Confidence Academy podcast Facebook group, where everyone else hangs out in there. So if you'd like to come over there, then I will add you in. Awesome. So everyone listening, get on over to that Facebook group. You can tag Elena in any questions that you have. There's something we didn't even touch on today, so we might even have to do another episode purely on this, but I know that you're a massive fan of speaking to yourself in the mirror and,
I am.
and affirming, the truths there. So perhaps we'll do something in the Confidence Academy Facebook group around that. And I really think maybe we need to do another episode purely all about that.
That would be fabulous. It is one of the hardest things I've ever done, but also the most powerful.
Yeah, I know people that do it, and actually those people all happen to be living kick-ass lives, so there's definitely something in that. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Lily. It's been an honor. Thank you.
And to everybody listening, I hope you enjoyed this episode. As ever, you can continue the conversation over in the podcast Facebook group. We'll pop a link in the show notes, and I will be back very soon with another episode. But in the meantime, remember, confidence is yours as soon as you choose it. Take care. Bye-bye. And that's us done for another episode. I hope you are now feeling uplifted, inspired, and motivated, and ready to start making those positive changes starting today. If you love this episode and would like to connect with me or any of my amazing guests, then get on over to the Facebook group and join the conversation there. And for additional support and accountability, why not become a member of the Confidence Academy Members Club? You will find all of the relevant links in the show notes beneath this episode. Plus, I am so excited to announce that the Singing Club is back. This is my amazing 8-week program for people who have always wanted to learn how to sing. Singing has been and continues to be one of the main ways in which I keep my own anxiety at bay. I believe almost anyone can learn to sing, and if it's something you've always wanted to do, then you just have to be part of this next round. The program will run live via a private Facebook group where you can get feedback and support from me and the other group members. And the best part is, when you pay for this program, you are a member for life. That means that every time I run the course, you can come through it again and again as many times as you like, regardless of how many updates and price changes there may have been. Head on over to lilybadcock.com for the full details. In the meantime, I'll be back again soon with another new episode and more amazing guest experts. But until then, look after yourself, dream big, and live bigger. And remember, confidence is yours as soon as you choose it.